has never been done was to also ask a self-expression question in the lesson. So they were presented with a lesson in a really traditional way about the topic. It was explained on the board. They did a handout or something traditional science class style. And then they had to create a work of art using that knowledge. And in addition, the work of art had a specific question attached to it. So the 5th graders were asked to create something that represented their family heritage. The 6th graders were asked, what does it feel like to come back to school in the fall? Which was pretty entertaining. They started with the funeral dirge, but they progressed to something better when they really thought about it. The 8th grade was asked to represent a moment in your life when you learned something or realized something important. This wasn't entirely successful because 8th graders don't really like to admit that they ever had anything they needed to learn. We'll get to that. 9th grade was asked to create a work of art that shows an aspect of your favorite place to spend time. So it was like, think about your very favorite place to be, and there was a visual art project around it. And the 10th graders did art about the 2 people in their lives who influenced them the most. Any questions? So then to assess the interventions, I used the Next Generation Creativity Survey. So this was actually designed by the Center for Research on Creativity. And it was designed to be a test that you give before and after some program that you're doing. And it gives you an actual number back on all these measures of creativity. So it's not directly related to the research question in all the measures. So I only looked at 4 of them. And the one that I was really interested in was called Creative Self-Efficacy. And that's a self-reported score where students are answering questions about how they think about their own capability to invent things, to solve problems, to stick with a problem, and basically to engineer new ways to solve physical issues in the physical world. So it's kind of a measure of how good am I going to be as an engineer. And then there's also qualitative things on the survey. So the survey has several places where they draw pictures. That the scoring was designed by a group of psychologists at UCLA, but I took it as qualitative data, and I'll show you some of the pictures from before and after. And then you combine that with student interviews and just observations of how they did in the class. So this is just illustrations of how some things came out. This is the 10th grade. They did a curriculum from the Metropolitan Museum of Art on geometry, and they did Muslim art stars about people who meant something to them. This is from the 9th grade, and we need to remind you if you think you might recognize a student, it's confidential. We can't say their names right now. We can after we turn that off. So in the 9th grade, they created what's called automata. So the idea was to make a mechanism, to make a moving sculptural work of art above the box there. And this was the first student to get done. His favorite place was the gym and volleyball practice. So he invented a way, this is only partially done. He built a net, and the volleyball, when you make the lever go, it goes up and over the net. It's pretty cool. But they all had some really neat ones. In the 8th grade, like I said, they don't like to get too deep and admit when they really learned something in life, and I didn't have a ton of time to really get them to do that. So some of them just did simple things like a light bulb with a light in it, but they made paper art, and they wired a circuit behind it with a switch for an LED that came out of the art. 6th grade did a dance, which is amazing, but the video didn't embed. We can watch the video later. Okay, so these are some of the quantitative results, and I consider them qualitative. The biggest jump in creative self-efficacy was in the 6th grade group. Combining visual art with math just really did a lot for them. And then, yeah, this is the dance and math group. And then this was for the 10th grade, so they saw a lot of gain for the boys. And this is out of 20. Oops. And then for the girls, it was pretty similar results. Choreographing a dance was probably the most juicy in terms of what it produced for them. Any questions? And then this is just an example of some of the qualitative results, so the before and after pictures. What they have to do on the survey is draw themselves inventing something. And it has instructions. They have exactly 8 minutes, and they draw themselves, and they are supposed to add a few words, and they're supposed to take the whole 8 minutes and add details. And there's some things about sort of where they place themselves in the picture. But what I kept finding really interesting was just the looking before and after and seeing how much more detail in science and technology went into it. So this one's here to show that there was a trend that before the interventions, there was a lot of sort of magical thinking going on. There was a lot of pixie dust and magic kitty cats and things like that. And then after, there was a lot more really specific information and specific designs and things like that. Another thing that I did, because research really showed that, you know, there's gender and there's also ways of thinking, and gender's pretty fluid in terms of how people are looking at it right now. So I had the kids answer some questions about their ambitions, and A kids have ambitions towards being an artist, and then NA were non-artists. So this is a student who is a female and just wants to be an artist, and she had a little bit of a creative self-efficacy gain from the study. This is another student who invented a freeze ray, and then she invented a portable version and got really circuity and technical with it after the intervention. She's also an artist. I looked at 55 of these, which is a good thing. I really like looking at kids' drawings. This is a boy who wants to be an artist, and before the survey, he saw inventing, meaning doing his favorite thing, which was inventing a film. He's just making a movie and editing it, and then afterwards he actually made something that involved some technology and electricity. Here was a teleportation pad. It's a pretty good thing. This is younger students, and with younger students it was a little bit more apparent, particularly with the girls. They started out being magical. She's actually emerging out of a volcano and magically creating a time machine. And here she has a welding mask on. This is somebody who did soldering during the intervention. And she's got a schematic going on here of the order that things are going in. I can't quite tell what she was trying to invent. She's a little more confident as her engineering thoughts. Again, this just shows the magical kitty and the Pegasus wings and things before the intervention, and then she's actually operating a real machine here to make happy poopy clouds come down. So then there was also some tangential data, because the survey provides a whole lot of different results, and I think the most interesting thing to come out of that was the big increase in empathy in the girls in the study. It's pretty interesting. They said that they were more likely to worry about others in their groups and things like that. So the recommendations for further research, a lot of times during the study, I noticed the boys coming up to me and saying that they were really bad at art, and so could we go back to science because they just can't stand art. So I think that there's a whole other study that needs to be done someday around that. Maybe there's some opposite disparity there, I don't really know. Also, again, the changing landscape of gender in the U.S. and how people report their gender and look at it, along with the recent brain research. And also, obviously, it needs a much larger sample size. 55 students is not enough to really say that these are numeric quantitative results. That's it. All right, that's it. Any questions?
So do you want to include the